In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a really cool discovery here with Inkscape and InkStitch that I think you're going to find pretty valuable as you go about creating your embroidery designs. And what we're going to talk about in this example is editing existing embroidery files. So oftentimes we'll get an embroidery file, we'll buy something online on Etsy or whatever, and it's not quite what we need, and we need to be able to modify certain bits of it. And we can do that quite easily here in Inkscape, and then utilize InkStitch where we need to utilize InkStitch to ultimately create our finished embroidery file. So let me show you this little project that we're going to work on for this example and just kind of wet your whistle at the process here. So what we're talking about importing a native stitch file, not an Inkscape file or not a file that we created with InkStitch. We're talking about a native embroidery file, stitch file that you would put into your embroidery machine. In this case, it's a PES file for my Brother embroidery machine. So let's go ahead and open that. Okay, and we'll go ahead and just accept the defaults. And so, boom, now we have our design here inside Inkscape. Now, the first thing I think we should do is just go jump right into InkStitch here and go to the simulator. And I was kind of surprised initially when I attempted this because it just goes right in to simulating our design. So I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. We don't have to do anything, just import the PES file and see how it stitches out. So pretty cool stuff. So first thing I noticed in this file that I probably wouldn't necessarily like is that my fill stitch, the stitch angles are going straight up and down. And I might want to have those, I typically will have those going at an angle of say 25 degrees. That's typically what I use. But if there was a situation where you had this design that was already digitized, right? And for some reason you stitched it out and the push-pull compensation was just kind of off the charts and it wasn't stitching right, well, this is going to show you how you can easily go in and change that one component that's not stitching right. Maybe sometimes you can get better embroidery results just by changing your stitch angle. Okay, so this process will allow us to do that if we run into a situation like that. And then the other thing is sometimes because of what we're stitching on or how our design is, we may not want to have any underlay, but the design came with underlay. Or we might want to, in this case, I want to add underlay because you can see this fill stitch here has no underlay. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and wash this black stitch out, and then you could see here that we have these jump stitches. Okay, and now this is a big deal because there's a lot of situations where I've seen on various embroidery groups people complaining about jump stitches. You know, most embroidery machines don't have automatic thread trimmers, so jump stitches tend to be a big deal because sometimes if it's not digitized properly, we have to cut the jump stitches as the design is stitching because we'll have elements being embroidered on top of those jump stitches, which of course that's a big no-no. We don't want that. We want to be able to have the design start and finish all the way through, and then we'll trim the jump stitches as our last step. So trimming jump stitches in the middle of embroidery is not fun. And also trimming jump stitches that are unnecessary at the end of the embroidery, that's not fun either. And so a good digitizer will be very mindful of how many thread jumps, how many thread trims, and really try to minimize that and route those jump stitches in such a way where it really makes a lot of sense, more sense than just kind of having them go willy-nilly everywhere. So let's go ahead and let's start doing a little bit of prep work here and showing you how we're going to modify this file. So when we bring in an existing stitch file, you're going to have a situation like this where it says color block 1. So we're going to right click and ungroup, and then same thing with color block 2. We're going to right click and ungroup, and then we're going to change the layer name to white. In this case, I'm doing white layer. I think this is a great idea. to separate your embroidery components. So I always do that. I always create various layers. So I feel like the design will make more sense to me. So there you go. So we'll take the black object and throw it on the black layer, and then we have the white layer here with our white object. Okay, so one quick point to make. If you notice here, if I double click on it, what we're looking at here are all of the original needle points. Okay, so we want this embroidery file to stitch out just the way it was digitized, but we do want to make some changes. Okay, so that is just something to kind of keep in mind here. If I go back into extensions and choose InkStitch Visualize Simulator, and I just want to turn on the needle points so you can see them. Okay, so the needle points right now, as you're looking at it on screen, is the way the design was originally created. Now, when you import your design, you may not get your needle points the way the design was originally created. So just kind of keep in mind what you're looking at here and watch what happens when we make a change here. Okay, so if I just select the black component and come up here to InkStitch params, when you initially import a embroidery file, the running stitch method here, you see that, is not going to be manual. It probably will be running stitch. Okay, now if I look at the needle points now, notice all these needle points. Okay, and notice how these needle points are. And that's because it's using these needle points based on all of these params. But if I go to manual stitch, watch what happens. You'll see right here in the number 1, and over here, you're going to see like this kind of, all these needle points in line like the original file was. And that's because we switched over to manual stitch. And so we definitely want to do that. So make sure you do switch over to manual stitch. All right. So the first thing I want to do is let's go ahead and turn off our black layer. And I want to just take a look at our white. Okay. Now, here's the drawback here. We cannot modify existing stitches. Well, like, I shouldn't say that. We can modify existing stitches, but in this particular instance, we cannot add underlay to the stitches that already exist. So in this particular instance, we have to redigitize this shape. Okay, and it's really simple, even for a brand new person. Let's go over to, I'd like to work in outline mode when I'm doing this, but whatever suits your boat here. But we're going to go into our pen tool here in InkStitch or in Inkscape, and we're just going to click on various points here. So we're in our pen tool. Let's right here. Okay. Let's see here. We got something going on here. I don't know what. There we go. No. Still. Oh, we're on the wrong layer. We're on the black layer. I don't know why it says black white. It is black layer. And then we got to be on the white layer. I'm sorry. I was trying to do something on the black layer. We can't do nothing on the black layer. So here we are on the white layer, and we're just going to click anywhere where I feel like there's a change in direction. That's where I start. Okay, super simple. Now, when we have lots of curved areas, I will just go ahead and click on several points. I do like to zoom in here, so I will click on several points. You kind of get a feel for it. Once you've used Inkscape enough, you'll say, okay, I know how many nodes I need to add to get the result that you want. So now that we've created all these straight line segments, we're going to switch over to our node tool here in Inkscape. I just hit the N key on my keyboard, and I'm going to click and drag those paths right where those needle points are right there. So you could just come over here and just kind of eyeball it right where those needle points are. We click and drag, click and drag. You don't have to be super precise. Be as precise as you can be, but you know, it doesn't have to be like dead nuts on. We could be close enough. Okay. Now, if you really want to control exactly what's happening here, you can click on here and you get these little control handles and see how you can really fine-tune control. Now, these are corner nodes, so it's only going to be affecting one side of the curve. And so sometimes that can be helpful. So you can see there, boom, right along those needle points, right? Come down here, same thing, right along those needle points. Quick point to make about these transformation handles. If you do not see them, it's probably because this guy right here is unchecked. See, they go away, they come back, they go away, they come back. Sometimes it's actually a little bit useful to not have them visually in our way. So that's why you're able to turn them off and on. Okay? So that looks good. That looks good. Then we got this one. Sometimes it's also helpful to add a node. So you can just double click and really take fine control if you need to. Got these control handles. Sometimes you may, if you see how I change this control handle, it changes the other one. So you can click on that node, make sure it's highlighted, and come right up here and choose corner. And now when we do it, see, now it only allows us to change one side or the other. So sometimes that could be really useful to take a little bit more fine control of exactly what it looks like there. And I promise you, once you've kind of done this for a few images, this part of it may look complicated, but it really does come second nature to you. Okay, so now we have that shape. So now what I want to do, I'm going to put that on my white layer here. I'm going to delete my original shape. We no longer need those stitches because we're going to do something different. So you see here, we're just going to click a different color. So we're going to go to the View menu, Display Mode, Normal. And now you can see we do have a different fill color. So to add a fill, you're just going to left click on any colored square. If this had a stroke, we would shift click to add a stroke. See there? Or we could shift click the X to get rid of it. So because we just are doing a fill, that's the way we need it. So we come up here to InkStitch Params. And now we will take a look at changing our stitch angle to 25 degrees. That's just what I like to use. I'm going to go ahead and leave the defaults alone for the rest of it, as far as the underlay density and the fill stitch density and all of that stuff. We're going to just leave all that alone. But you can see we have a great result now of our fill stitch. We've got some underlay that we wanted, and we've got our stitch angle that we wanted. So let's go ahead and turn off our white layer, and let's take a look at what we're going to do here on our black layer. And this is the part that I think is just a really neat option. And it's definitely going to be something you're going to run across that you're going to want to know how to modify. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of the existing jump stitches. And it's really easy to do. We're just going to double click here. So we're going to double click on that. Let's zoom in a little bit here. Double click on that. So we created two nodes. You see that there? And I'm going to click on the path in between, and then we're going to choose this option right here. Right here. Delete segment between those two nodes. So you see here? So now we've deleted that. So now what we can do is we can delete, and we just kind of follow it. Follow the nodes. This is all that jump stitch. All the information from the jump stitch. Okay, so we're going to get rid of this one, and this one, and this one. Let's see here. Yes, we're going to get rid of that one, and this one, and this one, and this one. We did not want the jump stitch coming up to the top. We actually want the jump stitch coming right here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and delete this back to there. Okay, and then the same thing over here. We're going to click here. We're going to click here. We're going to click on that segment in between and say get rid of that. And then we're going to get rid of this part of the jump stitch. And then we're going to come up here And again, we're going to, all this stuff inside here, we don't need. That was all part of the jump stitch. Okay, so we don't need any of that stuff. Oops, grabbed the wrong node there. I want to make sure we're grabbing the node of the jump stitch. All right, so now we've gotten rid of our jump stitches. So far, so good. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take our path and we're going to break this apart because we do need those jump stitches, but they have to be in a certain spot. Okay, so I'll tell you what, let's not do that just yet. Let's not break anything apart. Let's take a look at the simulator and see why we are still going to have an issue. Okay, so let's go up to Extensions and InkStitch, and we're going to choose Simulator. Let's go ahead and pause that. Now it's not going to do the white because the white we have invisible at the moment. So it's going to just start in on the black. So all looks well on the black. So far so good. Right? It's going to come along, come along, come along. But what's it going to happen right here? We don't see anything happen, but let's turn on our frog and look at there. There's 2 jump stitches. But watch what happens. Where is that jump stitch jumping to? It's jumping back to the top of the eye where we didn't want it to jump to, right? And then it's jumping across from this, it's jumping across, and it's jumping across to the bottom. Okay, well that's good because that's where we want that one to jump to. But it's this one that we have to control a little bit more. We want this jump stitch to join right there. Okay? So how do we make that happen? Well, it's pretty simple. So let's go ahead and close this out. Now that we know what the issue is, it's pretty simple to fix. So what we're going to do here is we're going to grab our pen tool again, and we don't have to be super precise, but we're going to get close, pretty close right down here, and we're going to go all the way up here. Okay, and we're just going to right click. Now, right now we don't have any type of stroke applied, but we're going to give it a stroke, shift click on black, and now we do have stroke applied, okay? Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to take this object here and we need to break it apart. So we're going to go to Path and we're going to choose Break Apart. So now we have several things going on here. What's this big one here? Let's just turn that. Sometimes I'll just turn it off and on. So oh, okay, that's the main piece. We're going to put that at the bottom. InkStitch stitches from the bottom up. So that could be important. And now this path, that after we finish that, we need our path. But we need to add to this path, okay? Because we actually need this path to go all the way to the top up here. So we need it to jump here and then go to the top, and then it's going to start our satin stitches. So I'm going to grab my pen tool, and we are going to start from here and just come all the way up to there and right click. Now we don't want no fill, so we're going to get rid of our fill, and that's how that's going to work right there. Okay, I tell you what, we actually need to change that. It might be a little bit confusing right at the moment, but let's just bear with me here. We're going to grab our pen tool again, and we're going to click there, and we're going to click up here. Okay, so we actually created a different line segment there. So here is our main piece of our black. Then we have our jump stitch, and then we're going to have this running stitch. Okay, this is going to be a running stitch. So when we do running stitches, we want to just change our stroke style to any dashed line. Okay, and now you can see, if I zoom in a little bit here, you can see we do in fact have a dashed line there. Okay, so that part's good. And then I think that's it. We're going to stop there and see if this now stitches properly. So we're going to find out here in a second. So this piece, we are going to give some params. So let's go ahead and give it some params. What we need to do there is we need to change that to a manual stitch. So instead of a running stitch, we're going to go manual. And the main point here is when we have our needle points, it's going to jump from one spot to the next. That's all a manual stitch does. It will literally where the note is, that's how it's going to run. So now let's go ahead and take a look at our simulator and make sure this file is in fact running the way we want it to run. So we'll pause it for a second. We can see once it does the main spot, it's going to jump. And then you can see this is going up. Oh, you can see this is jumping over. So we can close that out. We know that's not stitching properly. So what we need is we need this piece. So we got this piece, then that piece, then we need to switch our eyeballs around. We need that eyeball to stitch first, then that one next. Okay, so let's go back in here to simulator. I'll go ahead and pause that and just fast forward it through. Jump stitch, boom, and then we have a running stitch up to the top because our eye, the satin stitch of our eye starts at the top, comes down to the bottom, and then it's going to pop over. Now we can't see the jump stitch because we don't have them turned on, but there it is. There's that secondary jump stitch, and then it finishes out. Okay, and then we can just come in here and clip, 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 and we're done. Okay, so there you go. So we really cleaned that up a little bit. So now we're going to go ahead and close that out, and let's go back in now. Let's turn on our white layer, and let's do one quick look now of everything, and then we'll save our file, and then we'll take a look at the file. Okay, another point to make about editing existing embroidery files, sometimes we can save stitch count just by modifying our underlay or the density of our fills, or there's just so many different things we can do that we can modify things that it's just a very useful thing to know that we can do this quite easily. So you can see there's our fill. It's going to come through, look real nice, and that's going to finish out. All right, so now let's go ahead and close this, and we could save this now as an Inkscape, a native Inkscape file, so we could further edit it if we wanted to. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I wanted to go point one other thing out real quick. Let's go back into simulator mode because this is important. I wanted to show you the needle points. Okay, so you can see here. I do see an issue. I'm glad I looked at this needle point situation because these needle points are not correct. And that's because we broke our path apart. That's why it switched on us. So if we go back up here to extensions and choose InkStitch, we need to go to params and we need to change that back to, you can see it's running, and we need it manual. And what that does is it puts our needle points back to the way they were originally digitized. So we definitely want that. Okay. And then these two pieces, I guess we could just do the same thing. Just come in here to params. And we'll go ahead and choose those to manual stitches. And I guess really we probably have to do that. Let's see here. Okay, that is part of our main. Right, so then the eyes were only different. Okay, perfect. So now, yes, now everything should work correctly, and we've got our right needle points and so forth. So let's just do one more look. I always like to look at those needle points. Make sure that that is, in fact, going to stitch the way I intended it to. Yes, that looks good. Now, this is the main thing I wanted to point out here. The jump stitch, because we've got it as a manual stitch, notice it's going from this point to this point in one jump. There's no in-between needle points. These things that kind of look like an in-between needle point are actually other objects, but it's just one failed jump. Boom, boom. That's what we want for a jump stitch. But then you'll notice that there's a couple of needle points here to get to the top, and that's because of the params for that running stitch. So that's why you see those extra, that's probably 2 or 3 millimeter stitch length there or something. So that's why you see that. Now, if we turn back on our jump our jump stitches, then you could see what I was talking about. This one jumps from there to there, okay, and continues on with the embroidery. So yes, so everything is looking good just like it is. So now I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and save it. And I guess we can just call it kitty face. And notice that we're saving it as an Inkscape SVG, so we'll go ahead and save it. But now we are going to save it as the PES file. So we're going to go ahead and use my brother PES file, hit save. Okay, so that takes care of that. And now what we could do is, let's just minimize this. Let's take a look at the PES file in my editor. So we'll go here. This is my editor. You can see what it looks like here. Now you'll notice right off when I do this preview, I did not get this bottom very good. You see that? I'm not very happy with that. I don't know why it looks like that. Let's close that out. Everything else, ooh, look at there. It looks like just a little bit right there. This could probably be a little bit better as well. So there's a couple of issues there, but let's go look at our original file and let's go see here. Let's go back into InkStitch and see if there really is an issue there that I just didn't catch. So we'll go back to the View menu, Display Mode, Outline, and let's just look here. Let's see. I guess you see that little gap there? I guess he's right. I guess it could have been, that could have definitely been better connector right there. So that's definitely one thing that would look better. And you can see this is a little bit on the outside there. So yes, I'm going to go ahead and make that a little bit better. And the reason that we're seeing that is because we did not have our black layer on when we were making our white. So that's why this is covered up, although we could bring that in a little bit. This looks fine. But boy, we really were off here. So we'll tidy that up a little bit. We were copying the existing white stitches, not our black outline. So that's my bad. I didn't really think about the black outline that was going to cover up our white border. So that's all looking good now. Move that in. Okay, that's a control handle. So you can see that's way off there. Easy enough. I'm kind of glad it happened because then you guys kind of get to see how easy it is to fix it. We want those two lines to really kind of line up because that black border is going around there. So you can see we can take pretty good control of it. Don't know what I did there exactly. I guess I didn't change that one at all. Okay, so now you can kind of see that that is much better, much more accurate. So let's go ahead and fit file, save as. Let's go back to our PES file. And of course, it's going to override the existing one. So yes, we'll replace it. And now let's take a look at our embroidery. So we'll just, I really like this My Editor software. I've used it for years. Okay, so I don't see anything changed from, so this doesn't look like, let's go back in here and see what happened here. I don't think it actually prompted me to replace it. Maybe it did. But let's hit File, Save As, and now let's go to my brother PES file, but let's save it as kitty face Number 2. And now let's see if that does not look better for us. And hit P for, yes. You can see there, everything is looking much better. You can see how that black is now lining up with the white. You can see right there, there's a tiny thread showing there, but I don't think that's going to be that big a deal. You can see too, right up top here, our white border could be adjusted to fit inside our black better. See how it's really close to the top there? So now that we have our black visible, we could go back in and modify our white outline a little bit better. But yes, you can see that's going to line up much better now. So that's really all there is to it. Again, this is my editor software. I really like the previews of it. Much better than the InkStitch previews. But I think you can see where that can really be useful to be able to edit your files. Now I do want to go and show you the stitch marks. We can't be in preview mode, but notice all of our stitch points right here are the same as the original file. The only stitch points we had to modify was for our fill stitch here because we wanted those at an angle. But you can see all those other stitch points are just like they were in the original file. So I really think that could be a big deal for you. Being able to really control your jump stitches and be able to modify things if you need to, and modify your underlay or whatever. That's really a big deal. And of course, you could modify your satin stitches and all that stuff. You could definitely take control of anything you need to, but that is, to me, a really powerful thing, being able to edit an existing embroidery file. So I hope you found this video informative. Please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. If you could, just leave us a comment, because when you leave a comment, it helps us with the YouTube algorithm. It gets our videos, if people are commenting on our videos and viewing the videos, then YouTube thinks, hey, this guy must be doing something right because look at all these people commenting. So if you don't comment, then they don't really know how well you did or didn't like it. And if you have an idea of a design or something you want to see demonstrated or learn more about, feel free to drop us an email. Our email address is in the listing description below. Also, we have a Facebook group called Learning Inkscape and InkStitch. If you want to join the Facebook group and see what other people are talking about, you might learn something there as well. Again, thanks for watching.